Hey everyone, it's Ellie Mae at Swift Creek Customs, and today I want to share a project with you. I cut this decal on the Siser Romeo, so I am going to share a little bit of the cutting process, a little bit of how I set up this design to get it centered on the board. I'm also going to share my screw ups because I messed up at least 4 times on this, but I just kept going, and I have a couple fixes for you. You don't have to necessarily recut the entire decal, but I wanted to share the whole process with you. So here is the video showing the process of how I did this decal.
So I set it up in the Leonardo Design Studio software. I set it up to no mat, and then I drew a box the size of my sign, and I added some rectangles to use as layering marks to center it on the board. And then here is the process of, I wanted to share showing it on the Romeo. So it is a large decal that Romeo can cut the width that I needed. And it just goes through the process. I'm showing from the back side as well. And the Romeo roll holder that sits behind, it has little feet on it that hold it in place, and it's holding that roll and allowing it to freely move as the entire decal is being cut. So I have sped some of this up so you're not watching the whole decal being cut, but it took about 12 minutes for this intricate design to be cut. My sign is like 19 by 27 or something like that. I'd have to go back and measure it again, which is one of the areas that I screwed up in, and I'll share that here in just a second. But Romeo's pretty zippy. I can't remember what speed I had this set at, but then I decided this time I was going to try a little bit different method to cut it off the roll. So I have shown in some other videos, I'll link in the description below, using a vinyl cutter on the front of the machine. This time I decided I'd just use my cutting mat and a long ruler along with my rotary blade. I couldn't find my actual rotary blade that I use for vinyl. It was hiding, it was in a safe place, and so it was a little bit dull. You'll see here I had to cut it a second time. It worked pretty slick. Again, this is going to be complete user however you're doing it, and if you're going to get it straight or not, but it worked pretty slick for me. So I have a couple ways I can do that. And then here is the full process of the weeding part of it. Now, I had those layering marks in there. Guess what? I just cut one of them off. So I like to cut any excess vinyl off and I save it for scraps. Not thinking about it, I went ahead and cut one of those rectangles off. So it still worked with one, but 2 is better. So like I said, I'm going to share my screw ups in the video because, you know, we all make mistakes. We all have encounter issues and have problems, and sometimes we can work through those, which is what I did in this whole process. Here coming up is going to be another one of my mistakes right there. I weeded the wrong part out. And I will show you how I fix that. Rather than cut this entire design completely from scratch, I'm going to share a tip on how I just fixed it. So you can see there's like a big hole right there. But I did keep, even though this is sped up quite a bit, I did keep this part of the full length in the video. Some people like to watch the full process being weeded out. I'm one of those that I can get mesmerized by either the weeding process or even Siser Juliet and Romeo cutting. I can just watch them. Often I find myself just stopping and staring at them as they are cutting. Such a clean cut. Make sure you do your test cuts. Test cuts, test cuts, test cuts are going to be your best success for getting great cuts when you go to do your projects. Such a great machine to do the precise cutting with it, all those little pieces in there. So it was really easy to weed. Just take your time. Weeding takes practice. And I got this idea to do a koala because my first one, which I'll link in the description below, I did a yin and yang dragon, And the design wasn't the greatest once I got it cut. It really wasn't created well. But when I was reading it, everybody thought it was going to be a koala. And so I found this fun little guy who I will link in the description, and thought I'll cut it and put it up on a sign. So I'm just taking 12-inch transfer tape, and I'll link that below, and you can overlap it for your design. You don't necessarily need 24-inch transfer tape when you're working with it. And then just make sure to burnish it down and go slow. While it looks like I am going super fast, this video is sped up quite a bit. So I am going slow. I actually am probably going faster than I should have. I get excited. I just get really excited when I'm creating projects. And there's another, I screwed up because I got so excited. So here in just a second, after I'm helping, my vinyl's kind of a bit on the old side. It's a couple years old. So once in a while it stuck, and I just helped that off. It didn't, I didn't have to stop the project. I didn't have to throw it away. I just worked with it. So I just took it and helped the backing off a little bit. And then there's one spot coming up where I got too antsy and wasn't paying attention, and I ripped the vinyl. And if it was for somebody else, I probably would have recut the whole thing. But since it's for me, I just left it. Here it is coming. Well, I thought it was. I guess we missed it. But I ripped it. And maybe it's when I transfer the thing onto the board. It's been a couple weeks since I finished this whole thing. And then I was using that rectangle to line it up in the corners of the sign. Well, once I got going here, I would have noticed this sooner too if I had not chopped off the other rectangle. It worked great to put this in the corner. It helped to line it up. And then after I got going with it, I realized that I made another mistake. So by the time I measured my sign and I walked from my studio where I record, where the sign was, to my computer and entered the measurements, I somehow changed the measurements from 19.75 to 17.75. So I lost 2 inches. So you'll notice that my design is not centered. And I left it. It's still on the board. I can decide at a later time if I'm going to redo this, but I could also add something along the bottom. So I've just kind of left it sit, and we'll see what I end up doing. I could add a saying along the bottom. Maybe I just say, don't take things so seriously, and put that on the bottom. And I think right here, we're coming up on the part where I messed up. Yep, right there. So I got pulling too hard on that. It was really well stuck down. But I just smoothed it back down. And then I took that rectangle and just peeled that off. So it really helped, if I'd measured accurately, it would have helped greatly in the centering process, especially if I hadn't chopped off that second mark. But you can see I'm measuring there. I realized my error. I realized it right at the very end. And now I'm going to show how I'm going to fix that little part that I weeded out and need to recut. So rather than cut the entire decal all over again, I just am going to cut the one piece. So I went back to the Leonardo design software. I released the path on the entire design, which means that the whole design is broken up into pieces now. So I right-clicked, chose release path, break path is what it's actually called. And you can see now I can isolate an individual piece. So I isolated that, I pulled it off because I didn't want to select the rest of it. I did save the file as an edit file so that I wasn't saving over top of my original. And then we're going to see here, I come back out and I'm going to move the entire design off page, and I just need to recut this little piece. So I moved that, and I'm going to come over here to my artboard, and I changed it so I had a strip that I had cut off of the original design. So I changed the width of my media, And then I just sent that through Leonardo to Romeo to cut. And we're gonna switch over here. And then I loaded the scrap piece into my Romeo. I will also link a video on how you can do this and set up your machine. So you can, since you tell Romeo and Juliet exactly where you want it to cut, you can actually cut in the middle of your machine or the right side of your machine, but you have to make sure you move that blade housing where you want it to start. So that is the #1 important factor. I can't tell you how many times I have started the machine without having it where it should be. And so I just needed that little piece. So instead of, scrapping this entire project, I went ahead and just cut that little piece, and off the scrap piece from my 24-inch vinyl, used a piece of transfer tape, and I just applied that piece only. And there is my finished sign. I messed up a few times in this, but I just kept going. We all make mistakes. This one is for me, and whether I redo it or not, I might just add a saying, but I really like this little guy, and he seems to follow you wherever you look at him from. I want to thank you for joining me. Check out the links below for more information. Have a great day.